Hi, I'm Matthew Wright, and I'm a volunteer with the New Brunswick Media Co-op. Today we are interviewing an author, playwright named Julie Ivanel Johnson. She's from New Brunswick and has a disability. Three of your one-act plays have been performed in London, England, and two of these now are been chosen to be part of the Alabama International Fringe Festival later this month. To start off with, what are the major themes or takeaways from these plays?
They're both comedies, Matthew. One is called A Tack Room. It's a comedy suspense that takes place in a stable. And one of the protagonists and the main characters in that, two of them actually are disabled. Um, One is mentally challenged, the other's physically challenged, and they become the heroes at the end of the show. They end up catching the criminal that was lurking behind the thunderstorm that came through. That's a half an hour show. The other one's called The Pistols Report, nothing to do with guns. It's about a young girl who's a real pistol, and she's reporting to her classroom about things that happened at her home that weekend. But because she is just a 12-year-old, she's misinterpreted a lot of things in there. And she has two daddies, and one of her daddies is a violinist who uses crutches and a wheelchair. And the wheelchair kind of becomes as well as the pistol, Geordie. The wheelchair kind of becomes the big clue at the end of the farce, where a lot of things end up happening because her daddy was in that wheelchair.
Mhm.
Uh, Go ahead.
Sorry. One is described as an equal play. What exactly does that mean?
Mm. That was the third one that was done in 2024. So last spring, the same theater company in London, England, chose that one. It was just a 10-minute one act. It was called Unplanned Planet. And the four characters in it were the four seasons. And they were basically talking about the problems that they were having with climate change in this time. So it was through Unplanned Planet that I found this same director who was happy to do rehearsed readings of these longer one acts this year in London.
Okay, perfect. You mentioned before this interview, two of them celebrate categories or heroes in disabled, LGBTQ, and BIPOC communities. Can you say more about that?
Yes, I was a high school English drama teacher for a lot of years and taught in four different countries. And I taught inner city. Um, I taught for quite a few years on an First Nations reservation in Montana. And because of that, I feel like I always want to make sure that I have a lot of diverse characters in my novels as well as my plays. So in the two plays that are going up at the Alabama International Fringe Festival, um, the first one, as I mentioned, Geordie has two daddies. And then there's also a male housekeeper who appears to be very camp and very gay, but in fact, he's straight. So I'm trying to also show that a lot of assumptions are often made about people that we know, and I don't really think we should be making those assumptions. It's hard sometimes, like, when I'm in a wheelchair, a lot of assumptions are made about me, not just about accessibility, but just assumptions that people in general make, and we all do it
Mhm.
when you see someone or you hear someone. So I also, as well as just trying to make it a more common thing that we use characters from marginalized communities, I'm also trying to show that, look, things may not be exactly as they seem or what we hear. That's not necessarily what it really is.
Exactly, because that's one of the big beefs I've had in my journey as a person with a visible disability. And at 47, but it was invisible until then. And I always found that even in the medical community, well intentioned, but if you did not fall within the quote unquote norm, they didn't think you were a part of that disability.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, and for full disclosure, I have a disability that uh, doctors aren't even trained for yet in medical school. When they found that out, I told my family doctor about it, and she looked at me and said, Gesundheit,
What?
because, yeah, because she's never heard of it. And I gave her permission to talk to other doctors in their practice, and I was the only one they knew of.
Well, Matthew, I might have to work you into a play or a novel or something because that is unbelievable. But I
Yeah.
on the having said that, I do believe it. Of course I believe it because I think
Well,
we've
yeah.
all if you're in a marginalized community of any kind, you're going to experience these things all the time.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And one of the things I find interesting is some of your plays being shown in Alabama. They're not exactly the most inclusive today because of Trump. And has there been any problems that you've run into with because of
Um,
that?
that's a great question. And it's very strange, but I actually have two connections right now with Alabama, and I never have in my life before, but I'm also doing counseling for my mental health right now. Um, and have a counselor who is in Alabama, and they the group chose him as my counselor. You can always change if you're not feeling that
Mhm.
your counselor is a good fit. I was amazed. This man is really liberal minded. Um, he's got all kinds of great experiences about living in Alabama. And the Alabama Fringe Festival is titled an international fringe festival. So as the promotions have been coming out more and more for it, because they're airing the digital fringe at the same time as the fringe festival itself is happening in Prattville, Alabama, and that's September 26th and 27th. So I've been really impressed with how culturally diverse all the plays that they're going to be showing appear to be, and all the different really amazing cultural events that they're going to be having physically there in Prattville, Alabama. So I don't know whether the general public's just going to be in for a big surprise. This isn't their first year. I think it's their third or fourth year of running, but they're really pushing diversity in this fringe festival, and I'm just loving seeing it happen.
Well, that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Uh, as a person with a disability and a playwright from New Brunswick, how many obstacles were there for you?
I think a lot of those obstacles would not be there if my disability hadn't progressed to the point that it's at. We do live very remotely, and I think a lot of people in New Brunswick do live very remotely. But for instance, Fredericton is 2 hours south of us. Moncton's over a 3 hour drive. It's very hard for me to be in a vehicle anymore without a lot of pain. I did go to Ontario a couple years ago and do a book launch, but we had to rent a van. I had to take a lot of painkillers for the 2 days of traveling to get there. I can no longer really do events here. There are some good author events that happen in New Brunswick, and New Brunswick has some very good communities to help, especially novelists. And I would love to be part of those events, but we live remotely and I'm disabled. So that's tricky. And as far as my playwriting, my goodness, I'm sure you know that theaters in New Brunswick are few and far between. Even community theater is practically unheard of. Um, I was lucky enough to have my musical workshopped a few years ago in Florenceville. That's the first time that they've ever had something like that there. So that's an instance of the community really got behind it, and there were a lot of sponsors for the professional cast, the equity cast that we had. But as far as the audience coming in, they'd never heard of such a thing. Some of them weren't even sure what a musical was. So those are sort of some of the restrictions that are on an author playwright, I think, in the province.
Continuing with that theme, people who are looking at becoming playwrights and have disabilities, what advice would you have for them?
Well, I think probably the best thing is if you're going to, if you're younger than I am and you want to be a playwright, I would try to be near a city center where there is at least one theater. Community theaters, community theater groups tend to be around the cities as well. So I think in order to be involved, if you're disabled, um, you've got to make yourself still available somewhere where you can be a part of a group. Um, and if you're going to pitch to an artistic director, of course, it's much easier to do things nowadays by emails, by Zoom. Anything virtually is great for the disabled, as you know. Um,
Mhm.
but you have to feel that you're not really getting your pitch across to an artistic director if you're sitting hours and hours away from them and they're staring at you on a tiny little screen. I've never really felt that I was being that effective.
Oh, that sounds like a big obstacle. And are you traveling to Alabama? Uh, or
Oh no,
no?
no. The great thing about this part of it is that they're showing the two London rehearsed readings that happened in April. They are showing both of those because they were recorded professionally. They're showing them virtually. So they have a number of plays that they're showing virtually as part of the Fringe Festival. So that's exciting because it can all just happen digitally. And Thornhill Theatre Space is the sponsor of that. So I want to make sure that they get a little salute.
Absolutely. Have you seen a fundamental acceptance of plays that are from the perspective of a person with a disability?
I think I think that this is certainly becoming more um, less rare, shall we say. I
Hmm.
wouldn't want to say it's becoming more common, but it's certainly becoming less rare, I think. Um, there's a book behind me, Nothing Without Us, that an Ottawa publisher put out 2018, 2019. Renaissance Press put it out, and they have been part of a pretty good wave in Canada for promoting not just disabled authors, but ensuring that the protagonists are also disabled, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, or all. Um, so that book was nominated the year it came out for an Aurora Award, and then they had a second sequel to the anthology, and it did win the Aurora Award because they were saying, like, you've really set a precedent here to I can't remember the exact motto, but it was something about, we're tired of seeing the disabled as the sidekicks for the
Mm.
protagonist, or the victims. So in this case, all of the characters, the main characters, have disability.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a part of a coalition called New Brunswick with people with disabilities, and that's one of the things that we always say, nothing without us. Are you have any upcoming plays that you're currently working on?
Well, thank you for asking that. People hardly ever ask that. I am working on another one act that I'm hoping to start submitting in the next few weeks. Um, it is about the main character is a homeless person in a train station, and she feels that she has a lot of information to offer. So every time someone gives her a little bit of change, she offers them a little tidbit of something that might help them along the way. But at the same time, the train station PA system is doing their usual announcements. But I've tried to write it so that those announcements can also be taken symbolically, so that we can start kind of looking at the world from the perspective of the homeless character, as well as just so many things around us are symbolic and giving us messages, and we're just not paying attention. For instance, I just noticed that my flowers behind me are wilting. Well, that is symbolic of the season right now. We're coming into autumn. That's symbolic of my life, kind of. That's how things are just working out for me. And it's also very symbolic of the world right now. So I'm actually kind of happy to see my flowers up there wilting.
Yeah, it's kind of a metaphor for life sometimes. Anyway,
Certainly right now.
yeah. Anything else you would like to add?
Um, well, we talked about September 26th and 27th being the Alabama International Fringe Festival. There are a lot of plays being shown virtually that weekend, going up on the Thornhill Theater Space YouTube channel in conjunction with the festival. But I'd also like to mention that this Saturday, is that the 20th, I think, is New Brunswick wide Buy an NB Book Day. So I will be doing a lot of promotions online and on social media for that as well. And Excellence New Brunswick has both of my books, and they're very, very supportive of all New Brunswick local businesses, authors, artists, crafters. So I would encourage anybody to go and look up Excellence NB online.
I've been speaking with Julie Ivanel Johnson, an author, playwright, and poet with a disability from New Brunswick. Thanks to New Brunswick Media today, September 17th. Have a good day.
Thank you.